You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode, I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today, on the Adiel Gorel Show.
Yeah, all of those foods have fats in them, and in green plants and fruit, there's about 0.1% fat. In whole grains, there's 2 to 4%. In beans, there's usually about 4%, except for soybean, which is 18% fat. And then in seeds and nuts, there's 20 to 65% fat. But every whole food has fat in it because some fat, and I'm talking about fats, oils, essential fatty acids, every living creature requires fat as part of its membrane structure, at least.
So I'll ask this.
Yeah.
Nuts in general, almonds and many other nuts are considered healthy, but people say, again, in your domain, and I want to ask you about it, take nuts in moderation because they are a very rich source of omega-6, but you need a certain balance between 3 and 6. If you eat too many nuts, you're going to have too much. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's hard if you don't know how much omega-6 and how much omega-3 is in a seed or a nut. Then it's hard to figure out how to get the ratio. And that's one of the reasons why we work with a blend, because we basically know how much oil is in the seeds and what is the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 to omega-9 to saturates in the seeds and nuts. And so we put it together so that people don't have to think about it. But generally speaking, seeds and nuts, if they're fresh, so not roasted and not rancid, they are associated with longer life and better health. And there are people, there are people who say, no, seeds and nuts are bad. Those people have not done their homework and they haven't paid attention to the research. These are whole foods. They have in them protein, they have in them minerals, they have in them vitamins, they have in them essential fatty acids. Those are all the essential nutrients, right? So these are, and out of that seed or nut, you have to remember, this is a whole organism, and all you have to do is water in order to make a whole plant out of it, right? So there must be pretty good nutrition in it because plants are made out of nutrition. Plants are made out of molecules. Those molecules are already in there. And the oil in those is energy source. One of the big functions of omega-3s and omega-6s is energy production, especially omega-3s. And if you want to have more energy, then you want to emphasize the omega-3s more. Most seeds and nuts have omega-6s in them. Only a few have omega-3s in them. And in the ones that have omega-3s in them, most of them have way more omega-6 than omega-3. So the ratio in any one seed or nut is not that good. So what are the ones that have omega-3? Rapeseed or mustard seed has about twice as much, 2.5 times as much omega-6 as omega-3. Canola, about the same. That is a low erucic acid rapeseed. Soybean has about 7 to 9% omega-3, but 57% omega-6. So that ratio is way on the omega-6 side. Walnuts, maybe 5 to 11% omega-6, 5 to 11% omega-3, and 50% omega-6. And then flax, 57% omega-3, like really high in omega-3, and only 19% omega-6. And this one, and then what happens with flax, it's the only seed where you can become omega-6 deficient because the ratio is so high, 4 times higher in omega-6, in omega-3 than omega-6, and you can become omega-6 deficient. And I did, because I used it as my only oil because I wanted to see what would happen, because I didn't think the ratio was good. But the guys I worked with tried to tell people the ratio was the best ratio. So I did the experiment, and within a couple of months, maybe 3 months, I had dry eyes, skipped heartbeats, arthritis like pain in my finger joints, and thin papery skin. Classic omega-6 deficiency symptoms. Fixed them by eating sunflower seeds, which have no omega-3s and a lot of omega-6. And then we said, let's blend it for people, because I'm trying to get people healthy. And if you give them flax oil, they could actually become omega-6 deficient, and that's going to cause problems. So that's why we ended up making a blend, and we work with that blend now. That's 2.5 times richer in omega-3 than omega-6. There's enough omega-6 not to become omega-6 deficient. And we tell people your body needs an oil change. Get rid of your frying habit. In fact, we say you got a frying pan at home. Everybody does. Get it out, turn it upside down, hit yourself on the head with it really hard so it's associated with pain, and then throw that stupid thing out. Frying is the dumbest thing we've ever invented to do to our food in terms of health. It is absolutely a health-destroying habit. And because
how would
go ahead.
Go ahead, please. No, please,
yeah,
please.
Because we damage the oil, we damage the protein, and we damage the starch. We burn them, we turn them brown, we turn them black, we turn them into smoke. And each one of those three, oil, protein, and starch, increases inflammation and the risk of cancer when you overheat it. That's what we're doing to the food. We're making it inflammatory and pro-cancer by frying.
How should we heat our food?
Well, I think we need to ask more basic questions. Should we heat our food? Because if you look at nature, which is where it all comes from, in nature's mandate for creatures that eat is fresh, whole, raw, organic, and for humans, mostly plant-based. Now, that's not always true, but the people who ate, with the people who lived with the buffalo, or in the north where they had fish and walrus and seals, and they didn't have much vegetables, they had shorter lifespans than the people who ate plants. And so, and I think the research now is pretty clear. You get the longest life and the healthiest life on a primarily plant-based diet. Even the gladiators were vegetarians. The tough guys that did the fight to the death, and had to be in really good shape. They were mostly plant-based. They didn't get steaks. They didn't get steaks in their cells. They got barley and plants.
Nevertheless, if somebody does want to heat something, what would be the least destructive, obstructive way of doing it, and what oil would they use?
Okay, again, I got to say no. No oil, no fat. In fact, the oil industry that makes all this oil that we use only started in about 1900. Do you know that? So this is like a new fad, 120-year fad, right? What did they do before that? When I was a kid, because in the 40s, 50s, we cooked in water. And in fact, cooking meant with hot water. And the other thing was called frying. Now the term has changed, that when you talk about cooking, you're usually talking about frying. So the meaning of the word has changed. So people say to me, well, what are we going to do with my steak? Okay, well, we cut it in cubes. We threw it in the stew with the vegetables and the spices. Tasted great, wasn't burnt. It was really good. Right? And then people say, oh, yeah, but I love the taste of burnt food. No, you don't. No, you don't. If you scrape that stuff off, put it on a spoon, like a spoonful of this scraped black stuff, and you eat it, it squeaks between your teeth like chalk on a blackboard, and it tastes acrid and bitter and nasty. It's disgusting. Now, why do we think we like the taste of burnt food? Because we love our mothers, and our mothers taught us that, and they were bamboozled by the oil industry that said, oh my God, if we could get people to use oil for cooking, we would make so much money. They were bamboozled by that industry in a time that I remember when people would say, oh, the industry would never tell us to do anything that was bad for us. Now when you say that, people laugh because so much exposure of so much corruption has surfaced. But there was a time when people really believed, oh, industries, they really care for us. They really care about us. Oh, government really cares about us. You know, now it's like, so what I say to people, look, keep the mother love. It's important. It's one of the greatest things on the planet. But separate your mother love from the bad habit you learned from her and blame the industry that pushed that on them by lying to them.
Okay, so assuming, by the way, you are a walking, talking demonstration of whatever it is you do is right, because you said you're 80 to be 81 soon.
Yep.
And just look at you and hear you and your energy. So right there,
yeah.
I know it's a 1 point sample, but it's a good sample.
Well,
it's a good
it's at least it's a good sample for me.
Right. By the way, did your toxic exposure clear out?
I had the beginnings of arthritis when I was 38. That was the year I got poisoned, 38. So when I bent my knees standing, just a little bit pressure on it, they already hurt. Now I'm almost 81. I have zero swelling in my joints. I have zero pain in any of my joints. I have zero pain in my knees or my hips or my elbows or my shoulders. The only time I have pain is when I bang into something, and I still do that sometimes. But I have zero, of all of the, and these pains that I'm talking about, they come with age, people say. No, they come with extended bad habits. Burnt food is the biggest of the bad habits. But we mess up food in other ways as well. And so literally, I have zero aches and pains, and I take no drugs. Last time I took a drug was I had a kidney stone, and I took Tylenol for 3 days till the stone passed. So only time I've taken a drug in the last 30 years.
So let's say we eat a mostly plant-based diet, mostly or even fully plant-based.
But whole food.
I believe whole foods, healthy, organic, non-GMO, from the best sources we can find.
Yeah.
We still need fat, don't we? We need fat in our diet.
All of those foods have fats in them. And in green plants and fruit, there's about 0.1% fat. In whole grains, there's 2 to 4%. In beans, there's usually about 4%, except for soybean, which is 18% fat. And then in seeds and nuts, there's 20 to 65% fat. But every whole food has fat in it because some fat, and I'm talking about fats, oils, essential fatty acids, every living creature requires fat as part of its membrane structure, at least. So, so nothing is fat-free if you're eating whole foods.
What about things like, olive oil, which, of course, it seems to be hard to even find a pure source. But assuming you found a pure, real source, what do you think of that, of olive oil?
Well, so there are two issues. One is the processing damage, and the other one is how much essential fatty acids and what ratio do you have them in. Extra virgin olive oil, if it's real olive oil and hasn't been diluted with cheaper oils, because that happens because the oils, because the demand for olive oil increased very rapidly and the trees grow very slowly. And so the demand outstripped the supply, and then people doctored the oils to fill the market, right? But extra virgin olive oil is made by a different process than the process used to make the colorless, odorless, tasteless oils that you find everywhere in plastic bottles. The process is different. And that process is not damaging like the process for most oils is. So that's a good thing. And that's part of the reason why people like olive oil, is because of the absence of the damaging processing. But there's no omega-3 in olive oil, and there's only about 10% omega-6, and 80% is omega-9, which your body can make out of sugar and starch, monounsaturated it's called, and then 10% is saturated. So in terms of the benefit of the essential nutrients that come from oils, olive oil is not that great. How do you figure out if your olive oil is pure olive oil? The way I do it is I stick it in my fridge, and if it goes solid, it's olive oil. And if it stays liquid and doesn't even at least get some crystals in it, because you can see those crystals floating in the oil, then it's because it's being diluted by usually canola or soybean or I don't know, maybe even corn oil, because then it stays liquid in the fridge. So that's how I do it. But I don't actually use extra virgin olive oil that much.
What about avocado oil?
Avocado oil, eat
and
the
avocados
avocados.
in general.
Yeah, eat the avocados. Don't use the oil. And I'll tell you why. There's research that I just read really recently. They started talking about that they should set some standards for avocado oil. There are no standards. There's zero standards. Even for the bad oils, they have standards. They have no standards for avocado oil. They're talking about that it's important. There's standards for olive oil. We have standards for Udo's oil. You know, the standards are important. So when you get olive oil, you literally don't know what you're getting. The oil in the avocado, there's some omega-3 in it, and there is some omega-6 in it, and there's a lot of monounsaturated omega-9 in it, but at least it has some omega-3 and 6 in it. And in the avocado, they're in their natural state. And when they turn black and you throw them out because they got spoiled, right, then you're not getting damaged oil. But you don't know what you're getting, because you can literally take rotten avocados and extract oil out of those. And then who knows what kind of a chemical feast you need to use to make it palatable. And nobody knows how it's done, and there isn't a standard. So olive oil coming from different places. I actually watched somebody on one of the social media channels showing people how to make their own avocado oil. So she took some damaged avocados, squashed them all up, put them in a frying pan, and fried the oils out of them. And said, see, now you can make your own avocado oil. Yeah, you can, but I would never use that kind of an oil. You fry it before you even fry it, you know? It's like...
What about coconut oil?
Coconut, similar issue. There's a book that somebody wrote who made every claim that can be legitimately made for omega-3 on the basis of existing research. They made every claim for coconut oil, and there wasn't any research to back it up. Because when I got that book and I read it, cover to cover, I went into Medline and looked for coconut oil and all of the issues that they said there wasn't anything, not even animal studies. And so the claims were made because the one to compete with is omega-3, because omega-3 has so many health benefits when it's in its natural state. And they got made for coconut. Coconut became very popular. What is good about coconut, just to be fair, if it's virgin coconut oil, it has really good antioxidants, has a really nice flavor, is good fuel, just like all fats are good fuel, but has like less than 1% omega-3 and maybe 2 to 6 maximum omega-6. And that brings me to another point, which is that people say saturated fats cause problems. You know, that's saturated fats have a bad reputation. They make platelets more sticky, so they get you in the direction of heart attack. They make you more insulin resistant, which takes you in the direction of diabetes. But omega-3s make your platelets less sticky, so they take you away from heart attack, and make you more insulin sensitive, so they take you away from diabetes. And most people are deficient in omega-3. So now you have to ask the question, you put it in context. And the researchers tend not to do this, but put it in context. Saturated fats are a problem, or can cause a problem, when you're omega-3 deficient. What happens to saturated fats when you optimize your omega-3 intake? Well, it's a balancing act between the omega-3s that make your platelets less sticky and more insulin sensitive, and the saturated fats that do the opposite. So if you do what everybody who is sane needs to do, is you build your whole oil intake around the importance and the necessity of getting omega-3 and 6 in the right ratio, made with health in mind, and then everything else becomes easier. And omega-3s have a really interesting property. They actively turn on the genes in the body for burning fat. Oh, how cool is that? So I call them the fat-burning fire starter, right? So the omega-3s make your body more able to burn the saturated fats. And then the saturated fats become fuel. And of course, it's good fuel because you can store 300 pounds of body fat and still be alive. Maybe not for long, but you get people that big. But for carbohydrates, you can only store like 1 pound of carbohydrates. It's called glycogen, animal starch, in your liver and your muscles. And when people run marathons, they carb load before they do that. At about mile 20, they run out of carbs. And then they have no energy for the last 6 miles. So we turned them off that. We said, no, carb deplete. Run the race on fat. Make sure you got enough omega-3s. Make sure your fat burning is turned on, and run the whole race on that. And people didn't believe us because there was like 100% opposite to what they'd been told. The few people who took us up on it, they came back and they said, that was amazing. Because when I finished running the marathon, I felt like I had enough energy to run another one. And that's the difference in terms of energy. So the saturated fats will always be secondary in importance, and mainly as fuel. And they are good fuel if you make sure you get your omega-3s in place, and you get your balance between omega-3 and 6, because those every cell has to have.
So when you talk about the example of the marathon that you just gave, you're basically harking to what people like to call keto and that kind of way these days. Basically, you deplete carbs and you function on fat. Yeah.
You could say that we started the keto diet. We didn't call it that, and we didn't make a point of it. But what we were saying, and I will continue to say, is you can be unbelievably healthy using fats as your major fuel, getting off the carbs that give you blood sugar swings and insulin swings and fat production swings and mood swings and then cravings, and then get into the carb addiction cycle. That's where most of the overweight comes from. You don't get that from fats. Eating fat does not make you fat. And if you eat omega-3s, they will burn your fat. If you have fatty liver, omega-3s will get your body to burn the fats out of the liver and use them for energy. And if you have them under your skin and on your belly and wherever you else carry fat around, omega-3s turn on the fat burning of those fats. But you have to lower your carbs when you do that, because carbs interfere with their ability to do that. So we started that. But the big issue with keto diet is most people just recommend saturated or monounsaturated fats, which are not essential. And they don't want to work with omega-6 and omega-3 because they're sensitive. we refrigerate the oils in the factory, in the shipping if it's over 2 weeks, in the store, and you refrigerate at home. Never use it for frying. Add it to foods after they're off the heat. So a lot of care is required for these. They're like perishable goods, like salads, right? So we give them that care. Not everybody wants to do that. And if you don't want to do that, then you kind of like sideline them and you don't talk about them. And, oh, yeah, it's like, And then you get some results with the keto diet in weight management, but it's not sustainable long term. You cannot sustain a keto diet, if you don't make sure that you give priority to the only two molecules that are very sensitive to damage, but are essential to your health. If you don't give those priority in your keto diet will not be sustainable.
But if you do?
If you do, keto diet's beautiful. Yeah, and if you get the...
On a sustainable...
On a sustainable, yeah. Because what makes it not sustainable is you're not getting enough essential fatty acids. So if you revolve your keto diet around the importance, the absolute necessity of omega-3 and 6 in the right ratio and not damaged, then all the other fats that you use for energy, for burning, they're not a problem. See, then the saturated fats no longer give you heart attacks because omega-3 protects you from them. And what I say to people is, listen, when saturated fats give you problems, that's a sign of omega-3 deficiency. Because if you optimized your omega-3s, they wouldn't be doing that. So again, it's been taken out of context. You need to always have the context. Where does it fit in nature? Where does it fit in the whole picture? And most people don't do that because, they jump on things, they make extreme statements that get some attention, but the advice that they're putting out, they might get more attention than I do, but I give better advice.
Well, I've noticed that for decades. I'm not exaggerating. I was looking at your materials in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to take you on a side road. I don't know why I have an urge to ask you this. This is not part of what we talk about, but it came to me, so I'll ask anyway.
Yeah.
What do you feel about what we call, intermittent fasting?
Oh, yeah, I do it. I eat 8 hours and fast 16. No question about it. Fasting, being hungry. We've made hungry it's like a crime. Oh my God, you can't be hungry. But we are actually made for eating, sometimes overeating, and sometimes not eating at all. And when we don't eat at all, then the body eats whatever is weak that's already existing in the body, because the body then eats itself, right? Because if you got nothing coming in from the outside, but the body will eat cancer cells, and the body will eat inflammatory molecules, and the body will eat whatever, and you literally begin to strengthen the body because you're actually digesting the cells that are not strong. And so it's called autophagy, which means eating yourself. Absolutely a good idea.
So I'm a 16-8 person myself and have been for quite a while.
Yeah.
Just like you say, 16-8.
Yeah.
But recently, somebody that we talked to said the autophagy really doesn't start as soon as 16 hours. It needs more like a day and a half or two. What do you think about that?
The next question I would ask, what are you selling? Right? Because, people say things, you have to say, why are they saying that? What's the agenda? Right? 8-16 works. There's enough research. Even 10-12 works to some extent. Right? Obviously, it also makes sense that you might fast for 2 or 3 days, right? Where you maybe just take a little broth or something liquid or some juice, that's a good idea too. The longest fast I ever did was 14 days. And the first 3 days I was
What
really
did you
hungry.
consume?
Huh? Just water. It was a long
What
time
did you
ago.
consume? Just water.
Just water. Yeah. And so the first 3 days I was really hungry. So it was like I was suffering, right? After that, my body completely changed. I was not hungry at all for 14 days. For the other 11 days, I wasn't hungry at all. Very comfortable. And then slowly the hunger came back, and then I broke the fast with a submarine sandwich, which you're not supposed to do, but I was young and crazy. So, so there's something to be said for fasting, and there's something to be said for not eating. And because we're not living in subsistence situations where that's forced on us, we actually, from a health perspective, are wise to do it deliberately because we can, and it's good for us. And so, yeah, and there are people who say 8:16. You can take it down to 6, whatever it is.
6:18.
6:18. Yeah, and you can take it down to 4:20, right?
20.
They all work. And there are some people who just eat one meal a day, and it all works. But I do well on 8:16, and sometimes sometimes it's
Me too.
yeah.
Having done it for years, I don't even think of it as anything. It's easy. I don't even think it's so easy.
It's completely natural to me. I start eating at noon.
So I'm not. Same exact here. Exactly the same for me.
Yeah.
So 12 to 8 is my window. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not even you sleep a large part of this of the 16 block.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so now for more resources, I know our viewers, our listeners in the cars, and me, my selfish need myself. Where do I go to get more of your information? Is there a website that? Where do I go?
So the website where I talk about oils, which is the most neglected area. Then I talk about digestion, which is the second most neglected area. So we talk about enzymes and probiotics and fiber and bitters, because if digestion isn't working, not much is going to work in your body. And all of that information is on a website called Udo's Choice, udoschoice.com. And then I do stuff about total health and human nature, which is I think a really important area. And that you find on theudo.com, theudo.com. And then I'm on Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel, and I'm on Instagram. And if you just write Udo, UDO, which is my first name, if you write that into your search box, I'll come up very quickly, because there are very few Udos on this planet.
Okay, I have bought products of yours 35 years ago. And I heard you say about how you create the blend that has no deficiency of 3, no deficiency of 6. It's cool. I am sorry, I'm selfish. I want to know the name of the product.
Oh, it's called Udo's Oil, or Udo's Choice Oil Blend, 369 Oil Blend. And you find that in a brown glass bottle, in a box, in the fridge, in the supplement section, in health food stores.
Yeah, I've seen it. At Whole Foods many times.
Yeah, it's there. We're there. I spent 15 years traveling, telling the story about fats, living out of a suitcase 6 to 9 months a year, 40 countries. And I just love it, because I know how many people can be helped by getting this information in the most confusing area of nutrition corrected. That's what keeps me going.
Udo, I'm very thankful that you took the time to be with us. Lots of amazing information. I'm sure we can all benefit. Resources to go to. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I 100% appreciate it, because if it wasn't for you being an amplifier for the message, I'd be talking to myself in the bathroom mirror, and that's not very productive.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this interview. Thank you for joining us today. I know you love what's coming next in part 2. Be sure to click the subscribe button for more videos.